The ocean's secret deep beneath the shimmering waves, where the sun's rays barely touch the ocean floor, a hidden kingdom thrived. It was a world unlike any other, filled with creatures of dazzling colors, swaying gardens of glowing plants, and an enchanting palace built from the very heart of the sea. In this mystical place, the Ocean Queen ruled with grace, watching over the currents and the creatures that danced within them. But among all the wonders of the deep, nothing was more precious than her 7 daughters, each possessing a beauty that rivaled the sea itself. Yet it was the youngest princess, Ariel, who held a curiosity unmatched by any other. With eyes as bright as the moon reflecting on the water and a voice as soft as the ocean breeze, Ariel longed to understand the world beyond the waves. While her sisters delighted in the endless beauty of their underwater home, she would often linger by the shimmering barrier between sea and sky, watching shadows move above. The palace where they lived was unlike anything ever seen on land. Its walls, sculpted from coral, glowed with a soft golden light. Shells, opening and closing in rhythm with the tides, adorned its roof, each holding a pearl so brilliant it could rival the stars. Fish of all sizes swam through the arched windows, whispering secrets of the deep to those who cared to listen. Beyond the palace lay the most mesmerizing of sights, a garden unlike any other. Instead of grass, the ground was covered in fine sapphire blue sand. The plants swayed as if breathing, their petals glowing softly in shades of crimson and violet. Some shimmered like fire, while others pulsed with an inner light, illuminating the water around them. Strange, yet beautiful creatures weaved through the foliage, their scales glinting like polished silver. Despite all this splendor, Ariel's heart longed for something more, something she could not yet name. She spent hours listening to the stories of the elder sea creatures, absorbing every word about the world beyond the water. It was a place where the air was fresh and filled with laughter, where the sky stretched endlessly, and where mysterious beings called humans walked on 2 legs instead of swimming with fins. Ariel's grandmother, a regal and wise woman of the sea, often warned her of the dangers beyond their world. She had seen too much, lived too long to believe in foolish dreams. "The world above is not for us," she would say, her voice firm but kind. "The ocean is our home, and here we belong." But deep in Ariel's heart, a feeling stirred, an unshakable yearning for the unknown. And no matter how often she was reminded of her place beneath the waves, she could not ignore the call of something greater, something waiting just beyond the ocean's surface. A strange, endless blue light filled the depths of the ocean, making it seem as if the sky stretched in every direction. On rare days when the sea was calm, the sun appeared above, casting a golden glow that shimmered like a blooming flower beneath the waves. Each princess in the kingdom had a special place in the grand underwater garden. Their plots were unique, shaped by their own imagination, a whale, a mermaid, or intricate patterns of seaweed and coral. But the youngest, Ariel, designed hers in a perfect circle, mirroring the sun she longed to see. Within it, she nurtured radiant red flowers, their petals as brilliant as the sunset. Unlike her sisters, who delighted in gathering treasures from shipwrecks, ornate mirrors, golden trinkets, and strings of pearls, Ariel cared only for her garden and one precious relic, a marble statue. It was a carving of a young man with features so lifelike that it seemed as if he might wake at any moment. The statue had sunk to the ocean floor during a great storm, and ever since, Ariel had spent hours gazing at it in wonder. Beside the statue, she planted a delicate, rose-colored weeping willow. It grew quickly, its branches extending gracefully, draping over the marble figure like a soft curtain. When the currents moved, the tree's shadow danced across the ocean floor, creating the illusion that its roots and crown were trying to embrace. While her sisters busied themselves with the excitement of the kingdom, Ariel longed for stories of the world above. She would listen intently as her grandmother described the wonders beyond the waves, the towering forests, the cities bustling with people, and the creatures that soared through the sky. The idea of birds was especially fascinating to her. She imagined them as singing fish that glided through an ocean of air, filling the world with melodies. "The flowers on land have a fragrance," her grandmother had told her, "unlike ours, which are beautiful but have no scent. And the trees, oh, how green they are, stretching toward the heavens." Ariel could hardly contain her curiosity. More than anything, she wished to witness these marvels with her own eyes, but she would have to wait. Only when she reached her 15th year would she be allowed to rise above the waves and glimpse the world beyond. Each of her sisters would have their turn before her, one every year. And though they promised to share their discoveries, nothing could ease Ariel's longing. Many nights, she would sit by her open window, gazing upward through the dark waters. Schools of fish darted by, their tails flashing silver in the dim light. The surface of the sea seemed impossibly far away, like a dream just out of reach. And yet, something inside her told her that one day, her time would come. One day, she would break through the surface and see the wonders of the land for herself. Ariel often gazed up through the endless blue, watching the moon and stars flicker like distant lanterns. Beneath the waves, they appeared magnified, glowing with an ethereal light. Sometimes, a dark shape would glide between her and the sky, either a mighty whale drifting lazily above, or the hull of a great ship, oblivious to the young mermaid reaching toward it with longing hands. Then, the long-awaited moment arrived. The eldest sister turned 15, earning the right to rise to the surface. When she returned, she spoke endlessly of the wonders she had seen. The most magical thing, she sighed, was resting on a sandbank beneath the moonlit sky near the shore. I watched the lights of a great town twinkling like fallen stars. I heard music drifting across the water, the hum of carriages, the laughter of people, and the ringing of bells from the towering churches. Oh, if only I could have stepped onto land! Ariel hung on every word, her imagination painting scenes of dazzling cities and vibrant celebrations. That night, as she sat by her window, she swore she could hear faint echoes of those bells, carried by the ocean's currents. A year later, it was the second sister's turn. She ascended at sunset and returned with tales of breathtaking beauty. The sky was ablaze with gold, violet, and fiery red, she recounted. Clouds drifted like silk, shifting with colors I can barely describe. And across that glowing sky, a great flock of white birds, their wings long and slender, soared toward the horizon. She had swum after them, enchanted, but as the sun disappeared into the waves, the colors faded, leaving her surrounded by deepening darkness. The third sister was the boldest. She ventured far beyond the sea, following a great river inland. What she discovered left her awestruck. Green hills rolled across the land, covered in vines, she said. Grand palaces and castles stood among towering trees, their walls gleaming in the sunlight. And the air, it was filled with music. Birds sang in 1,000 voices, and the warmth of the sun was so intense I had to dive beneath the waves to cool myself. She had even encountered human children playing in the shallows. Curious, she had approached them, eager to join their game. But the moment they saw her, they screamed and fled in terror. A strange black creature had rushed forward, barking furiously at her. She later learned it was called a dog, an animal unknown in the depths of the ocean. Startled, she had darted back to the safety of the sea, though the memory of the laughing children remained with her. The fourth sister was more reserved. She did not venture close to land, but remained in the heart of the open sea. It was just as beautiful, she assured them. The sky stretched above like a vast glass dome, and I could see for miles. Ships passed in the distance, their sails so small they looked like flocks of gulls. Each story only deepened Ariel's longing. Her turn was still far away, yet she could think of nothing else. The human world was calling to her, and one day she knew she would answer. Beneath the shimmering waves, dolphins leaped and spun, their sleek bodies cutting through the water like silver arrows. Towering whales released mighty sprays from their blowholes, filling the sea with the mist of 100 fountains. Yet, of all the sights the Mermaid sisters had witnessed, none was as breathtaking as what the fifth sister beheld on her first journey to the surface. Her birthday fell in winter, and when she emerged from the sea, the world above was transformed. The ocean had taken on a deep emerald hue, and enormous icebergs drifted silently across the water. They were like pearls, she told her sisters, but larger and grander than the greatest cathedrals men have ever built. Their jagged peaks glistened under the pale sun, refracting light like enormous diamonds. She had perched upon one of these floating giants, letting the icy wind tangle her long hair. Below her, the ships that sailed by moved swiftly, avoiding the frozen monoliths with great caution. As evening fell, the sky darkened with storm clouds, and thunder rumbled across the vast expanse. Lightning streaked the heavens, its crimson glow reflecting off the ice, turning the world into a fiery dreamscape. The sea raged, tossing the icebergs about, yet she remained seated upon her frozen throne, unshaken. Over time, the sisters' fascination with the human world began to wane. Now that they were free to visit whenever they pleased, the wonders they had once longed for no longer seemed as enchanting. After a month or so, they would return home, declaring the depths of the ocean far more beautiful, far more comforting. Still, there were moments when their curiosity stirred once more. On certain nights, the five of them would rise together, their arms entwined as they broke through the surface of the sea. Their voices, clear and haunting, carried melodies more alluring than any sung by mortals. Before a storm, when the winds howled and the waves threatened to swallow passing ships, they would sing to the sailors, whispering promises of a world beneath the waves. "Fear not the sea," their voices murmured, drifting through the howling wind. For below, the waters hold wonders beyond imagining. Yet the humans did not understand. To their ears, the song was but the wailing of the storm, an eerie lament of the deep. And when the sea claimed a ship, it was not the treasures of the ocean that greeted the drowned sailors, but only the cold embrace of death. Ariel never joined them. She remained below, watching her sisters disappear into the distance. A heavy ache filled her heart, a sorrow unlike any other. But mermaids did not possess tears, and so her grief remained silent, pressing deep within her soul. "If only I were 15, she whispered into the quiet sea. "I know I would love the world above and the people who dwell there." At last, the day arrived. Her grandmother, wise and ancient, summoned her forth. "You are grown now," she declared, her voice gentle yet firm. "Come, let me adorn you, as I did your sisters before you." With delicate hands, the old mermaid wove a wreath of white lilies into Ariel's hair. Each petal shimmered, for they were not mere flowers, but pearls as soft as moonlight. Then, with a solemn nod, she summoned 8 great oysters, which fastened themselves to Ariel's tail, a sign of her noble lineage. "They may feel heavy," the old one said, her lips curving into a knowing smile, "but they mark you as a princess of the deep." "The weight is unbearable," Ariel murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Her grandmother's knowing eyes softened. "I understand, child," she said. "But pride comes with pain." Ariel longed to cast away the heavy wreath of pearls and free herself from the oysters clinging to her tail. How much more comfortable she would feel among the bright red flowers in her garden. Yet she could not change what had been given to her. With one last look at her home beneath the waves, she whispered her farewell and ascended, her body rising like a delicate bubble toward the surface. The moment her head broke through the water, a world of breathtaking wonder unfolded before her. The sky, painted in strokes of crimson and gold, stretched endlessly above. A single bright star glowed in the deepening twilight, casting its serene light upon the gentle waves. The air was fresh, carrying the salty whisper of the sea. Then she saw it, a magnificent ship floating motionless upon the calm waters. Its 3 towering masts stood proudly against the sky, but only a single sail had been unfurled. No wind stirred. The sailors, their duties momentarily forgotten, lounged upon the deck, their laughter and chatter mingling with the sound of music drifting from within. As darkness settled, 100 lanterns flickered to life, casting a kaleidoscope of colors upon the water. They swayed like tiny glowing flags from every corner of the ship, illuminating the scene with an enchanting glow. Curious, Ariel swam closer, her delicate hands barely disturbing the surface as she reached the cabin windows. Whenever the waves lifted her, she peered through the glass, catching glimpses of the people inside. Their garments shimmered in the lantern light, their faces alight with joy. But among them, one figure stood out, one that captured her heart at first sight. A young prince. His dark eyes gleamed with warmth and kindness, and the glow of the lanterns danced upon his face. He was barely older than she, 16, she guessed, and the center of all attention. Tonight was his birthday, and the celebration was as grand as the sea itself. On deck, sailors danced merrily, their voices rising in song. Then, with a sudden explosion of light, fireworks erupted into the sky. Ariel gasped, startled, and instinctively dove beneath the surface. But curiosity drew her back up in an instant. Above her, the heavens seemed to shatter into 1,000 dazzling fragments. Fireworks painted the night in shades of silver, gold, and red. Sparks cascaded like falling stars, and reflections of fiery bursts shimmered across the undisturbed sea. She had never seen anything so magical. The prince emerged from the cabin, his face radiant with joy. He moved gracefully, greeting his guests with warm smiles, his laughter ringing like music in the air. Ariel could not tear her gaze from him. Every movement, every expression, filled her with a strange, aching longing. The hours passed, yet she remained there, floating beside the ship, unable to turn away. Then, one by one, the lanterns were extinguished. The fireworks faded, leaving only smoke curling into the darkened sky. Silence settled upon the waters, broken only by the occasional murmur of the sea. The celebration had ended, yet Ariel stayed. But the night was not yet over. A low, distant growl echoed across the horizon. The sea, once so gentle, shuddered beneath an unseen force. Dark clouds gathered overhead, veiling the stars, and a whispering wind stirred the waves. The air smelled of rain. The storm was coming. The ship's sails, once lazily swaying, were suddenly set with urgency. The crew moved swiftly, their once carefree laughter replaced with tense commands. Ariel felt the shift in the water, the growing restlessness of the ocean. She knew what was coming, and the prince, her prince, was still aboard. The sea had turned wild. Towering waves rose like mountains, threatening to swallow the ship whole. Yet, each time, the vessel dove like a swan into the abyss, only to rise again on the foaming crests. To Ariel, this was the sea's natural rhythm, untamed and powerful. But for the sailors, it was a nightmare. The ship groaned under the relentless force of the storm. The wooden planks, soaked and battered, began to crack. A deafening snap echoed across the chaos as the mainmast splintered like a brittle reed. The vessel tilted violently, and in an instant, the raging sea poured onto the deck. Ariel's amusement faded. The crew was in danger. She weaved through the wreckage, dodging shards of wood and fallen beams. The storm howled, drowning out the terrified cries of the men as they were thrown into the black depths. Then, a flash of lightning. For a fleeting moment, the world was illuminated in a ghostly glow. Ariel's sharp eyes scanned the waves, taking in every figure. The sailors, the broken ship, the shattered remains of what had once been a grand celebration. But not him. The prince was missing. Her heart clenched. Had he already sunk beneath the waves? At first, a hopeful thought flickered in her mind. If he had fallen into the ocean, perhaps he could live among her kind. But the truth struck her just as quickly. Humans could not survive in the sea. If he reached her father's kingdom, it would be only as a lifeless body. No, she would not let him die. Ignoring the wreckage that could crush her, she dove beneath the rolling waves, searching desperately. The currents tossed her about, the storm trying to pull her into the abyss. But she did not stop. Then she saw him. His body drifted limply in the water, his dark eyes closed, his strength fading. He was losing the fight. With a swift stroke, Ariel reached him, cradling his face in her hands. His breath was shallow, his limbs unmoving. She pulled him close, pressing his head above the water, allowing the waves to carry them wherever they wished. The storm raged on, but she did not care. She would not let him go. By the time the first golden rays of the sun touched the horizon, the sea had quieted. The raging winds had softened into a gentle breeze, and the sky had been painted in hues of pink and gold. Ariel looked down at the prince. The warmth of the morning light had brought color back to his cheeks, but he remained unconscious. She smoothed back his wet hair, tracing the curve of his face. He looked so much like the marble statue in her garden, serene, perfect. On impulse, she leaned in and kissed his forehead. A silent wish formed in her heart. Let him live. Then, in the distance, land appeared. Majestic blue mountains stretched toward the sky, their peaks dusted with snow as white as a swan's feathers. Lush green forests covered the slopes, and nestled among them stood a grand building, its white walls gleaming in the morning light. A garden surrounded it, filled with vibrant citrus trees and towering palms. A safe place. Gently, she guided the prince toward a quiet bay where the water lay calm and undisturbed. The sand was soft beneath her fingers as she carried him to shore, carefully laying him upon the warm beach. She propped his head higher than his body, ensuring his breathing was steady. Then, the sound of bells echoed through the air. From the grand building, a group of young women emerged, their laughter carried by the morning breeze. They walked toward the garden, unaware of what lay just beyond the trees. Ariel's heart raced. Would they find him? Would they save him? Would he ever know she had been the one to bring him back? Ariel lingered just beyond the shore, concealed among jagged rocks that jutted from the water like silent guardians. She draped herself in sea foam, allowing only her eyes to peek through as she waited, heart pounding. Would he wake? Would he be safe? The answer came quickly. A young girl approached the unconscious prince, hesitation flickering in her gaze. But when she saw he still breathed, fear melted into urgency. She called for others, and soon, a small crowd gathered. Ariel's chest tightened as the prince stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He smiled, grateful, relieved at the strangers around him. But never once did his gaze seek the sea. Never once did he look for her. He did not know. The realization struck deep, colder than the ocean's depths. She had saved his life, carried him through the storm, cradled him against the waves. Yet he would never know she had been there at all. As he was led into the grand building, Ariel could bear it no longer. She turned and dove beneath the waves, retreating to the only place that had ever felt safe, her father's kingdom. But home no longer felt like home. Her sisters noticed the change. She had always been quiet, thoughtful, but now she was withdrawn, lost in her own sorrow. When they asked about her first journey to the surface, she offered no answers. Day after day, she returned to the place where she had left him. She watched as the seasons changed. The golden fruits in the garden ripened, the snow upon the distant mountains melted away. Yet, never once did she see him again. Emptiness filled her, growing heavier with each passing tide. In her own garden, she sat beside the marble statue that resembled him, wrapping her arms around it as if it could offer comfort. The flowers she once loved were forgotten, left to grow wild and unchecked. Vines tangled in knots, leaves stretched across the pathways, and soon, the space became as shadowed as her heart. She could not hold it in any longer. One evening, she whispered her secret to one of her sisters. It did not remain a secret for long. Soon, all of them knew. Her longing, her silent suffering, the human she had saved. And fate had more to reveal. One of their companions, a mermaid who had also witnessed the grand celebration on the ship, knew of the prince. She had seen his home, his palace, and she could show Ariel where he lived. A spark of hope reignited. "Come, little sister," her siblings urged. Together, they linked arms and rose toward the shimmering surface, their hair flowing like ribbons in the tide. They traveled through the darkened waters until at last they reached their destination. It was breathtaking. The prince's palace gleamed under the moonlight, its golden stone radiant even in the night. A grand staircase of marble descended into the very edge of the sea, as if welcoming the waves themselves. Towering domes of gold crowned the structure, and statues of stone stood proudly between the pillars. Through the massive crystal windows, glimpses of luxury unfolded. Tapestries of silk, walls adorned with breathtaking paintings, and chandeliers casting a warm glow over the lavish halls. But it was the heart of the palace that stole Ariel's breath. A magnificent fountain stood in the center of a vast chamber, sending streams of water arching toward the glass ceiling. Sunlight would dance through that crystal dome, casting rainbows upon the flowers growing at the fountain's base. Now she knew. Now she could watch over him. Night after night, she returned. The ocean had never felt so small, nor had the land ever seemed so close. She swam farther than she ever had before, drawn by something she could not name. One evening, she dared to go beyond the waves, slipping through the narrow waterway beneath his marble balcony. A place so close, yet still so impossibly distant. Would he ever see her? Would he ever know? Night after night, Ariel watched from the shadows of the prince's world. She perched on the marble ledge beneath his balcony, concealed by the moon's silver glow. When he wandered alone in the soft twilight, lost in thought, she was there, silent, unseen. Sometimes he drifted across the water in a boat adorned with fluttering banners, music filling the air as he sailed beneath the stars. Ariel remained hidden among the reeds, her pale veil shimmering in the wind. To those who caught a glimpse, it was nothing more than a swan unfurling its wings. She listened to the fishermen who gathered near the shore, their torches flickering against the dark waters. They spoke of the prince, praising his kindness, his wisdom. Each word filled her with warmth. Had she not saved a soul worth saving? She remembered the storm, the way his lifeless body had rested against hers, the way she had pressed a desperate kiss upon his brow. Yet he knew nothing of it. He had never even dreamed of her. The longing within her deepened. Her world beneath the waves, once vast and endless, now seemed so small. Humans could journey beyond the sea, soar over mountains, and walk upon lands that stretched far beyond her sight. Their existence was a mystery, one she yearned to understand. But her sisters had no answers, so she sought out the one who did, her grandmother, wise and ancient as the tides. "Do humans live forever?" Ariel asked. "Do they never die, as we do beneath the sea?" The old woman sighed, her gaze heavy with knowledge. "They die, child, and their lives are even shorter than ours." Ariel's heart twisted. "But we live for 300 years, she whispered. "What happens when our time ends?" "We become foam upon the waves," the old woman replied, her voice like the ebbing tide. "No grave awaits us, no world beyond the water. Like seaweed severed from its roots, we fade, never to return." Ariel's fingers curled into her palms. "But humans, what of them? They have something we do not," the grandmother said. "An immortal soul. When their bodies perish, their spirits rise beyond the stars, beyond the world we know. As we surface to see the lands above, so do they ascend to a realm we shall never touch." A quiet sadness settled over Ariel. Why were we denied this? "It is not our fate," the old woman said simply. But Ariel could not accept it. "I would give up all my years," she confessed, her voice raw. "If only I could be human for a single day. If only I could share in their eternity." Her grandmother's gaze darkened. "Banish such thoughts, child. We are happier than they will ever be. Happier." The word rang hollow. "So I will die," Ariel murmured, staring at the swirling water below. "And when I am gone, I will be nothing. No music, no light, no memory of the world above, just foam upon the waves." A terrible ache bloomed within her chest. "Is there no way?" she pleaded. "No path to an immortal soul?" The old woman hesitated, then spoke in a hushed tone. "There is but one." Ariel's breath caught. "If a man were to love you beyond all else, more than his mother, more than his father, if his heart belonged only to you." The grandmother's eyes darkened. "If he swore before the priest to be yours for all eternity, then his soul would become yours as well." Ariel's hands trembled. She thought of the prince, of his smile, of the life he did not know he owed her. Could such love ever be hers? Her grandmother's words lingered in Ariel's mind, like a shadow she could not escape. A soul, the one thing she could never have, unless a human loved her beyond all else, forsaking his world for hers. But that could never happen. "They are not like us," the old woman continued, shaking her head. "What we call beauty, they see as strange. Our graceful tails, our very nature. They would trade it for the awkward limbs they call legs." Ariel glanced down at her shimmering tail, the very thing that defined her. To her people, it was a mark of elegance, a gift of the sea. But to the humans, it was a barrier. Her heart ached. "Come now, child," her grandmother said gently. "Enjoy what you have. We live for 300 years. Surely that is enough. And when our time comes, we shall rest as the waves carry us away." Ariel did not answer. That evening, the Sea Palace prepared for a grand celebration. The court ball was unlike anything the world above had ever seen. The great ballroom, crafted from thick crystal, shimmered like a dream. Light from hundreds of giant seashells, glowing in deep reds, emerald greens, and sapphire blues, cast a soft brilliance through the transparent walls. Even the ocean outside glowed in their light, revealing countless fish of all shapes and sizes. Some swam past in a parade of colors, scales shining with the richness of purple jewels, others glinting like molten gold and silver. A wide river of water wound through the hall, and within it, mermaids and mermen twirled and spun in an enchanting dance. Their voices, pure and melodic, filled the palace with a song unlike any heard on land. Yet none sang as beautifully as Ariel. When her voice rose above the others, sweet as the tide's gentle embrace, the entire court fell silent. Hands and tails alike applauded her, the echoes of admiration swirling around her like a tide of praise. For a fleeting moment, joy flickered within her. Here, beneath the waves, she was loved. Here, her voice was unmatched. Here, she belonged. And yet, the moment passed, because no song, no applause, no praise could quiet the ache within her heart. The world above called to her still. She thought of the prince, of the life she had saved, of the soul she could never share. Even in the heart of her kingdom, she felt lost.